Now the next ones are when I start adding grades and looks to them. So we have the cream, the north, and the west. Let's start with the cream. So you can see it just adds like that Kodak portrait. I am pretty damn excited about these LUTs. I've been making LUTs forever now, and the previous Sony LUTs I released were based on like those legacy colors that I have done for every camera. But now that I'm with Sony, there's so much more dynamic range that I'm able to play with, and so I redid my whole workflow. I'm going to use the last video I uploaded, which was about the A7R5 and the X100V. It was really just an excuse for me to make an anamorphic road trip video, honestly. So you guys can see right here, this is basically the base of each LUT. From there, I just go and add in a little bit more pop, and again, we'll go over it. But just so you can see behind the scenes, this is what we're doing here. So yeah, it's a bit intense. Let's just go and start with the first one, natural. Obviously this is overexposed, so I'm going to go into my HDR wheels, whatever program you're using. It's gonna be a similar thing. You just want to bring down the exposure. So you see I set my HDR wheels to S-Log3, and I'm just gonna do an exposure that I like. It's a pretty simple look, but the skin tones are still pretty good. So you see right here, this is just the standard Sony LUT, and then my LUT. So you can see it's adding a little extra sauce on there. Let's just go and add it to this next clip right here. So the Sony one, it's kind of just, I don't know, a little boring. And then mine just really punches it up. Also, I think it's important to note that the sun was blasting on yellow ground down here, so we're getting some yellow up reflections on my skin. But you can see where it's not hitting me, skin tones look a lot more solid. But so let's go to the natural plus. And you see the plus just adds a light, like soft kind of fade. This is if you want the cleaner look, but still kind of add a little bit more sauce to it. Let's bring up the exposure on this one, and then I'll just apply that LUT. So you can see the highlight roll off, it just makes it a little bit more thick. It's kind of just adding like a pre-flash look, which if you don't know what pre-flashing is in film, go do your research. It's pretty cool. So those three are just meant to give you that natural look if you don't want a heavy process look. Now the next ones are when I start adding grades and looks to them. So we have the cream, the north, and the west. Let's start with the cream. So you can see it just adds like that Kodak portrait Vision 3 500T pushed type look. So you see it really just warms up the exposure a little bit. This one's looking a little bit green, so I would go over here and I would adjust my white balance. And you can see if you go look at any like late 90s, early 2000 film that was shot on film and then digitally colorized, this is kind of the look. This is the look that I grew up just like being captivated by. So now let's go and do my second favorite one. So the cream one's the one that I pretty much go to for everything. The second favorite is the west, because obviously it just gives you like that really tilly, warm, we can push the magenta back again, just that warm, dusty, kind of like velvety look that I just am obsessed with. This one, you see we could probably go in and lower the exposure just a little bit more. You can even push this a lot harder. You can see just all the warmth that it's getting. Now the final one, and then after this we'll go through more clips just seeing what each one looks like. So the north is supposed to look more like Vision 3 250 daylight balance film, which is a little bit more of a bluish teal look in the highlights while still retaining skin tones. When you're making these film curves, like I did several nodes of curves that build up the look, and the main part of them target skin tones. Like it's just, you'll see it makes skin tones really pop. Now that we went over those, I'm just going to show you a couple of the LUTs on this shot real quick, and then I'm going to go to a different project and show you what they look like in other ones. But real quick, let's show you what the standard S-Log conversion would look like, and that's it. Pretty boring. My go-to one, which is the cream. That's it. That's all you would pretty much need. Like, I really love the way that looks. We can compare with the natural versus the Sony. So you see the Sony still looks very flat. The Sony regular Rec.709 LUT, not much. We could go in there. Let's do color boost, pump up the saturation too, versus just slapping my LUT on. A lot more natural. Like the very, very true concrete base of these LUTs are RE based, which is why I'm holding so much more of the dynamic range versus my older LUTs I've had for it. But on top of that, I just go, again, if we go back and add the cream LUT, you'll see I just start adding in all these curves and color tones to it. And it just really makes it pop. So let me go find some skin tones now. This shot's from my Great Joy 50mm review. Go watch that if you haven't. I had a lot of fun shooting this in Arizona too on Anamorphic. But this specific shot is on the A7R5 and the same lens I'm shooting on right now, which is the 20mm 1.8. Let's do the West LUT. So I see it with 0 changes, just the LUT on. That's what it looks like. I really am digging this. And then let me show you what North will look like. So see what the North did right in the skin tones up here where the highlights are. It kind of puts a blue tint to it, but it still holds the skin tones versus the West. The West, you see that very specular highlight still has kind of that blue tint, but the highlights have more of a yellowish tint. You can see on my shirt versus the North. All that kind of goes blue, but still on the skin tone. So I'm telling you, I'm very proud of these LUTs because this is literally like some of the best colors I've been able to do so far. Say if I want to bring out some of the exposure underneath my hat here, I'm gonna go lift that up. I'm gonna dial it in. You can see the before and after. So this is what I'm saying with these Sony cameras. This is the A7R5. This is the contender for the Canon R5. I was not able to pull out info like this on the R5. Yes, it is noisy. So I'll show you what my noise reduction setup looks like here. Just doing it real quick. The Sony A7R5 does have some chroma noise. All this noise in the hat underneath my skin right here, we're just cleaning all of that up. If I turn that HDR wheel off, you see we probably shouldn't be pulling up this info. The normal exposure is pretty dark, but it's there if you need it. So again, you're able to really clean that up. And then once when you're zoomed all the way out, you can't really see that noise. This isn't gonna play back all that well. And then say if I want to lower the exposure even more, you can see what that LUT's doing. It's kind of still holding the dynamic range on there. It's pretty sick. So let me just show you what these LUTs will look like on here. Let's do the natural film. So you can see the anamorphic streak right here is not being clipped. That happens so often with other LUTs just because it's just they're being pushed too hard. So we can even go in and let's do the cream. So you can see even the cream's not really going to push either. So I really built these LUTs off the past 3 shoots that I did with the FX6. You can see the lens is really pumping out those blue flares, but they are not clipping. To me, that's a tasteful blue. It's not crazy oversaturated. All these clips were graded with the West one, but this is an export on here, so they're not in the color grading clips. But you can see what that West LUT will do. That's kind of my go-to for any of this cowboy type stuff. So last shot, I'm going to show you a nighttime shot right here. This was in between me focusing onto the other subject. Once again, real quick, I will show you what the regular Sony 709 LUT looks on here. That's what it looks like. Very, very uninspiring and boring. Lower the exposure more. And then here's my West LUT. So I'm pretty happy with that. You can see our skin tones going a little bit yellow here because we have this light that's not a natural daylight balanced light, but we can push the magenta over. Look how amazing that sky in the backdrop looks like. And then we can lower our white balance a little bit and this looks amazing. Let's just see what the Natural Plus will look like on here. So you see the Natural Plus, again, let's go to the Sony one. The Natural Plus kind of has more of an RE type color look, pushing all my filmic curves onto it at the same time. So we could probably even go lower this exposure even more. This was shot in the FX6 and this is why I love it. Like this was a super dark, you can see the sunset. This was barely noticeable in real life and it's just holding all those colors. But this is more of a natural exposure here. Let's go run the same noise reduction. Look how like thick and satiny those shadows look on there. And then one last time, let's just go and add the cream on here just because I want them to see what it looks like. So that looks sick, but you can see we got to bring our exposure up just a tiny bit right there, 1.5. And this looks done and ready to go. So yep, those are my new LUTs. This is the most proud I've been of any set of LUTs, so sorry to toot my own horn, but I think I crushed it. So yeah, there'll be a link in the description for them, and enjoy.